Welcome, hello, Yasu and hi. My name is Tai Kölner, and today's topic is Lucifer and Belial seen from a female magician's perspective. There are many books out there, or older grimoires, which describe entities which are on the dark side. Let me say this wise. Um, Christian would say that's demon. But you know me, I see them just as older entities. So these older entities mostly are described in from the perspective of male magicians. And still up today, there are just a few females walking this path, and also even less females writing a book about, or like me doing a channel. Um, So the perception of these entities is a little one-sided, and this is why I want to share my perspective on them. Before I get into that, to those who don't know my channel, I will shortly introduce. So my name is Tai Kölner, and I'm an author. I'm a black magician. I'm working with the Clifford and the Goetia, and I'm an empath since birth. And today's I'm a student of the Left-Hand Order Dragon Rouge, and also especially about working with these entities, the initiatory approach and the support within the Brotherhood is very important to me. So, but I'm not a representative of the Order. So if you got any questions, you find the link down below. And of course, moreover, if you want to stay updated here, make sure to subscribe the channel, so then you get your notes when I send a new video. Yeah, let's get into. So Lucifer and Belial. Let's just put one to the other side. I will dig into, but first let's just get the frame. Lucifer is considered archangel, fallen archangel, and this is what you really see on him. He is a very controlled one, and he uses very chosen words, and he is dominating. He is really dominating, and his presence is undoubtless. So he is really a strong one. Another word connected to him is merciless. I will dig into later. And he is both a father and a lover. Um, Outer experience. He is a very beautiful one, and he is a very enchanting one. That's for the short frame. But not confuse it with this Disneyfication you find on TV today. That's far from reality. Belial, on the other side, is like a mirror. He is one of a high temper, and he's a wild one, dedicated to dark pleasures, dedicated to acting like a beast lover. He's a tempestous one, and also he wants to see you to break free from these social frames, or the frameworks you grew up with. He wants to see you testing through it, breaking it. And this is what is his wild side. Basically, he's challenging the society in a wild way, while Lucifer is challenging the society on a mental way, so on a very nerdy way. Getting into that as well. So, but starting at Lucifer. Lucifer is very dominant. He's a presence you cannot dominate. He is the one omnipresently dominating everything. So even sexually, 100% dominant, or even in teaching, 100% dominant. So if you get into teaching, and if you really make the contact, so he is teaching on you, you better dedicate, because he is a merciless one teacher. You can learn very, very much of him. But when you get a laziness, or if you think you need a test of lesson, it might happen that your entire life falls apart. You lose your partner, you lose your job, you lose everything you got. You're literally sticking your face into the mud and fighting to breathe. And this kind of pain of losing people you like, etc., etc., this kind of pain is not to please him. It's not the pain he is pleasing in. The thing what really is interesting to Lucifer is how you react on this. He wants to see you fighting. He wants to see you dedicating head upside down into books. He wants to see you dedicating in ritual work. He wants to see you dedicating and extending your outer physical senses. He wants to see you extending in your entire being. And when he gets to you for cutting what you got, pushing you into the mud, then it is about seeing your willpower, seeing your warrior mood, if you give up or fight. So this is one thing he is very merciless about. But this, if you for example, if you lose everything, you have to learn to let go. And this letting go is a very hard lesson, and he loves to teach it. So yeah, that's Lucifer as a father. And you see it on the students. So that ones who are carrying a part of Lucifer, sometimes, no, mostly, mostly, they're hell of nerds. So there's nothing wrong on being a nerd, but you really see it. And you can see on these students, you can see they have a presence. They have a presence that is speaking dominance, but on the other side, this sweet side, this beautiful side, what also unites in Lucifer, this gets together. So you have a very sweet person that on the same side is very dominant. So, and when you're talking to such a person, it's not about mundane world knowledge. It's not about studying knowledge. It's about a brilliance that comes from deep within. These people are talking to you, and they know exactly what word to use. They know exactly what tone of voice to use, what body language. It all gets together, and they are really brilliant in their work. So if you get into contact with such a brother or with such a sister, it now and then happens that this brilliance or this dominant, no matter what you're triggered to, but it can cause that you feel connected to. And the deeper you feel connected to, the more you get close to Lucifer. And as you get into contact, it might happen that you get pushed away, same way as it happens when you get lazy while working with Lucifer, and you get a pain. And on them, this distancing is the same as Lucifer when pushing you away because you do not fulfill his demand on you. If somebody who is carrying Lucifer aspect is putting you on distance despite he likes you, it's there's two things you really can impress: to not to give in and just to fight on. That's how you impress them. So it's not about getting clinchy. It's rather you lose something. And even though you did lose it, you don't start to cry like a baby. You're just forcing on your way. And this is how you impress those people in showing them will, strength, pathing on your way. And this is what comes through the Luciferian aspect. So, however, this is Lucifer in a human, in a girl. I think I'm not very good in mirroring myself. But I can tell you I was a damn nerd as well. I even did, for 1 year, I gave up my name, my first name, and in private life, I only introduced by my ritual name, and I used it in my daily life. So I only was, I 100% was focused on my magical purpose, on my studies, on my ritualistic purposes. So I even gave up my mundane name for that time. If that is not nerdy, I don't know. And today's I'm learning several languages at the same time, because I don't know if I can speak them, but I dare to try so. So that's a nerdy aspect as well. Or when I started on working the Clifford, it was 19 books or 18 books within 1 year I did read. So there you see the impact as well. However, yeah, perfectionists. That's another word what's really fitting on those who carry a Lucifer aspect. So this being said for Lucifer for now, let's cast a gaze onto Belial. Belial is someone who is tempestuous, a sexually beast lover, tending to porn wordings, especially towards girls, and he is into unveiling hidden and forbidden desires, and also he is into challenging society and to break from frames which are impacting you all your life. And so he enjoys whenever you test the border, when you step over it, and when you say, okay, there's the border, let's check what is behind. That's where he really digs into. um in my case it was even dissocializing, literally. When I got Belial first time, I was not working on occult works at all. So but there was somebody who was working on Satanic Bible near in my surroundings. So, and he did do an invocation. The background, maybe I will talk another time. However, this guy was practicing a ritual in my flat, and while I am very, very sure about that he didn't success on his ritual, I was the one who was open like a gate, as I was that back that days. And as being open like a gate, I must have been obsessed, or maybe I did invite him to host, and so he was with me quite a while, and I did start to question my life frames, my social frames, my sexual frames, and I did not even know why, but it was a clear change of character within me as well. And it even got that far, I did not even question society. I was on my way to leave society. I was on my way to move into a forest, just leaving society behind me. And it was just thanks to a friend back then, and to someone who's now my husband, who did get me into talking and did convince me to not to move into the forest. But this moving into the forest was caused by Belial, and I had no idea about whom I was carrying with me. I just found a paper in a cabinet where the ritual was written down, and there I did read the name, and it was not until 2017 when I did sense him again, and when I did sense him again knowing the name. And so I had the comparison, and I did knew it was his energy. Back then, I had no idea. That was around year 2000, 2001, aroundish. So I had no idea. It took 16 years until I found him again. So, however, he is somebody who, on boys, might trigger a fighter. So it might be that someone who is obsessed by Belial is trying to crash borders in an extremely way. So it might turn out criminal, it might turn out to get into fights, it might turn out to just fight usual laws. So let me put it simple: be there in time then and then. Guess who is not arriving? Or checking out drugs, or having a wildlife sexuality. This is all what is crashing on borders. You know, the society always has rules and rules and rules and rules and rules. And Belial wants you to be a pure core of yourself, what also gives into action that you try to break away from all these walls. So, to swim against the grain. Um, when you face these borders, and when you find out your own shadows, your own dark sides, your own, the things you think you may not do because of how your parents told you, and you suddenly find out that's a lie. This, I mean, Belial is one of them who in an action way shows you the lies of society. And the same when you compare it to Lucifer. Lucifer is showing you in an educative way the lies of society. So this is where they both are teachers. Getting a little deeper, when you got Belial on girls, he tends to trigger to extend the sexual hidden aspects. So you really get out the dark aspects you got, the dark desires you got, and to face yourself about this and probably to taste it, to work it out, to find out what is getting me the impact to be this way or the other way, and what really pleases me, what is my desire, what is my point of interest on this. This is where he impacts woman, and also he drives wild in a very, very literal way, as I said about the forest. Um, Otherwise, he does not drive goats wild to get into extreme when it comes to beating up people or so. That's not the aspect where Belial does impact on goats. Um, both both are triggers to find your own baseline of moral. So you question your society, you question your own inner desires, you find their roots, and you question your own behaviors and characteristics. And while doing so, you're developing a very own moral frame, what doesn't need to be the moral frame of humanity or society around you. It can be a really beyond matter moral frame. This depends on how deep you're working. And you you learn how to dissolve structures which are not serving your purpose, but are just social frames. Comparing Lucifer and Belial, you can simplify it in a way. Lucifer is someone who triggers to really nerdy study on your willpower, on your power, on your resistance, on languages, on science. He is completely into studying, and he is totally controlled. When it comes to Belial, he is one of liberation from social mindset. He is one of liberation from inner blocks, and he's the wild side. So both of them trigger and support to involvement, and this is what entities usually do. And there I want to give a little ending to this today. It There is some, like exorcism, blah blah blah, when they come up with a demon overtaking or obsessing a person, and they're just like speaking in 10 languages, whatever. um this makes no sense, and it's ridiculous. um if an entity is obsessing you, it's inspiring you. It is giving maybe characteristics of this entity will overlap to you. So as for Belial or Lucifer, you unfold a character what is quite similar to the entity you're hosting. But also, if you go out the streets and beat up somebody, it is not Belial who is beating up the other one, it is you. So no matter what entity is occupying you, um, the decision how you act on physically is always yours, because it's your shell. And why do they do this? Why do they study? Why do they cooperate? It's you are learning from them, right? but it's also what is in for me. And this is why this exorcism story is just a joke. It makes no sense to an entity to occupy your body just to blow you away, bubbling nonsense, and not being able to challenge life, because that's a really interesting thing to them. If you have a sexual fiery night, they have no body. They got no material body. So what's more interesting? And on the other side, if you have some entities who are challenging you in a physical way, like getting into conflicts, getting into drugs, getting into learning, that's something what they follow up and what they study on us, as for my opinion. But however, it is never that way that you just kick out of your socks and they overtake, and in the end you don't know what happened. The action is always yours. So let's see if I forgot something. No, yeah, I did. Also, it is like, I did do some days ago, I did do this video about love seen from a magician's perspective. It is this occupying or this obsessions. However, even though if some of them feel sexual, energy is always a learning, because in your energy body you carry everything you did learn in this life and in previous lives. And same about this old entities. If you just get a fragment of them to learn from, it's already golden, because your energy body gets access to the knowledge of this entity. And even if you don't make it to recall it into your consciousness, your energy body did learn from. So it is an active teaching if you're working with these entities, plus in invocating them. So hosting in your own energy a fragment of them also gives access to the knowledge this entity is carrying. So this is the point for today. I wish you a wonderful day, and talking next time.